Hello, my name is Mark Tillema from Integrated Management Concepts, and with me today is Tim Boatwright from 10-6. Tim is an expert in the earned value field. 10-6 is a consulting operation that focuses on earned value software and planning software like Primavera's P6. My company has the CloudEVM product, and so with that, we're going to spend the next 30-40 minutes going through some basics about earned value, and then we're going to go through the CloudEVM product and actually give you a live demonstration of the product. At the end of the session, you can ask questions. We have a means to ask questions within the product, or within the GoToWebinar. We're also going to post this presentation along with a recorded version of this webinar. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim Boatwright to talk about earned value management.
All right, great. Thanks, Mark. Welcome, everybody. So I want to talk a little bit today about earned value management, and particularly about what's going on in earned value management today. So there's been a lot of talk recently about the updated thresholds that DCMA has published, raising the level of contract value that is going to drive whether you have to have a certified earned value system. And I think that's getting confused somewhat with whether that means you're going to have to do earned value or not. When in fact, if you look at what the government is rolling out outside of those thresholds, the earned value requirements are actually increasing in the industry as opposed to decreasing. So some of the things that are evidence of that, the federal government is adding reporting requirements to government contractors. In fact, they're moving towards requiring over 100 data points for project management information that is going to be rolled out soon, in addition to all of the existing metrics that they're measuring. Recently, they've, in the last few years, they've updated from the contract performance report to now what is called the Integrated Program Management Report. And if you're familiar with those reports, you'll see that the first 5 formats are the same as they were, but now they've added additional formats, so they're pulling in more schedule information and history information. So that's an example of where they're asking for more information now than they have in the past. Similarly, the DCMA 14-point assessment, which has been used now for the past few years, is looking specifically at schedule data and schedule metrics, but again is in addition to the traditional earned value requirements and reporting requirements around project performance. And as I mentioned, not only are they adding metrics, over 100 separate metrics targeted at understanding how well you're performing against the 32 guidelines of ANSI, they're going to expect all of that to be submitted in an automated method. So out are the days of the subjective earned value expert to expert kind of conversations going on with the government and your government customers when earned value is required, and they're moving to more data on an automated delivery and a higher frequency. So that means, as we said, the requirements are actually not only not going away or being reduced, but if anything are being increased for the contractor. The good news is the federal government will still pay for not only the time to set those systems up, but they'll also fund the software. So if you win a contract that has an earned value requirement, you can have the software, particularly if it's set up in a subscription type of contract, charged back against the contract as an ODC. So let's move to the next slide, Mark. So this next slide is important because even though there's lots of talk about the thresholds that DCMA is putting out there and publishing and using to identify which contracts they are going to review, it's important to remember that all the agencies have their own thresholds. And so if we look at this slide, you can see that there's a variety of different thresholds out there depending on who your potential customer is or who your customer is. And even though most of these agencies will look to DCMA and the DoD environment for guidance around earned value and how it should be applied, they all have their own requirements. And so to me, some of the ones that are interesting, I think, to watch over the next year or so will be NASA and DOE, which into groups, Homeland Security, to see if they follow suit with DCMA's raising of the threshold or whether they stay where they are today. All right, next slide. All right, Mark, okay. So, and if there's any questions about how serious earned value is and the requirement is, one of the other things that started to happen is the Pentagon is actually withholding funds from contractors who don't meet the 32 guidelines. So if there's a gap in their compliance and it's a habitual gap, they have the authority to go in and withhold money from you. So this is an example on this slide from Aviation Week about an actual event that has happened around the F-35 where they're withholding the maximum 5% of the billing until those 32 guidelines are complied with. And that's a big chunk of money when you think about a program like the F-35. As you can see in that last paragraph there, Pentagon has withheld $195 million in payment to Lockheed Martin, the prime contractor for the F-35. So it's not an insignificant requirement and not an insignificant amount if you don't follow the intent of those guidelines. All right, next. So what exactly is earned value? I know we've got some folks that maybe aren't as familiar with what earned value is or are working on the opportunities that have an earned value requirement. At its core, earned value allows you to understand how much value the work you've generated and performed is, and allows you to compare that to how much that work actually cost and how much you expected it to cost at that point in time. And the ability to monetize your performance in a project so that you can then compare apples to apples opens up a wide variety of analysis that you can do on your project and understand not only your performance to date, but it equips you to do a lot of analysis on how you need to perform going forward and how you're likely to perform going forward based on your past performance. All right, next slide. Now, one of the things that we emphasize is that when you think about earned value, it's not a separate management capability or a separate management silo. Earned value management is and should be part of your overall integrated project management. In fact, if you look at the life cycle for project management that PMI publishes, you'll see that earned value actually connects directly into their process groups. It's not something that sits on the side, and that's important for people to remember, because I think a lot of times if you're new to earned value, there's a tendency to think of it as something else I have to do. And really what it is you need to make sure that your project processes, your project management processes support accurate, consistent earned value analysis as an integrated solution, not as a separate thing. So let's go to the next slide, Mark, and talk a little bit more about how that happens within the life cycle. So earned value specifically starts coming into play when we start talking about the planning and the planning process group. So while there are parts that that would come into play in the initiation process, really at the planning point where we're defining our WBS and we're defining the scope for our project and creating our initial schedules, all of that feeds into the earned value process. You can go ahead and click next, Mark. You'll see that this is where we start creating and establishing the basis of our earned value baseline, or our performance management baseline, the PMB. Is all happening based on your planning process. All right, next. And by doing that, you're establishing that baseline for your costs and your schedule, right, the time, as well as your technical performance and your risk to that technical performance. Now, all of those things, whether you're doing an earned value reporting or not, should be part of your planning process. If you look at the PMI lifecycle, it talks about establishing those baselines for the cost and the schedule and your technical performance and looking at your risks. All of those things are just good project management. What earned value does is help apply the discipline and the rigor around how those things are created so that you can utilize those to look forward in your project performance. All right, next. And go ahead and next. Similarly, the executing process is key to producing the data that's used by the earned value management processes. So this is the actual execution of the work, right? The direct and management of the project execution. So this is your statusing cycle. This is collecting your actuals, measuring yourself against that baseline. Next, and Mark, if you can go ahead and click next. As you can see, that all feeds directly into the overall earned value management process, because the earned value requires that regular status against your cost and your schedule. And because we set up in the planning phase that baseline, we also have the ability to capture what the technical performances that has been for your project. So you can see exactly where you are in the execution of your project. And from that, that's what's going to give you your earned value analysis. Those two things, the planning and the execution, all feed into the monitoring and control process. This is your management capability within project management and where you can do the analysis. Within this process, again, outside of even talking about earned value, this is where you manage the project work. You perform the integrated change management. You're going to verify that the scope is being completed and that work is following along against that scope. You control your schedule and your cost. Well, that's all part of the analysis that you're doing within earned value management. So Mark, if you can go ahead and hit next. So you can see that in this part is the normal earned value statusing cycle as well, where you're establishing and maintaining the credibility of the earned value data and using that data to not only, as I said before, understand how you've performed to date, but really key with earned value is that it enables you to look forward and project going forward how you both need to perform to hit your commitments, as well as how you're likely to perform in the future based on your past performance. All of that is based on solid project management. So it's key to remember that earned value is an aspect of project management, not something that is siloed off or separate from good project management. All right, next slide. So what does it take to develop and implement an earned value system? You might have heard this phrase before. It's people, process, and tools. And that's easy to say, but hard to do. All three of those aspects need to be managed and implemented and developed at the same time because they all play against each other. And one of our big points at 10.6 is that it's not one or the other that's important. All three together and where they intersect is what drives your earned value management system. And it really is a system. It's more than the processes and the documentation, because those by themselves, if they're not enabled by a strong tool, will tend to sit on a bookshelf and collect dust. And likewise, it's not enough just to train people on the concepts of earned value. If those people don't have solid processes and tools to execute those processes against, then that training will go to waste. You really need to think of earned value management as a system, as a maturity step in your overall project management, not something that's siloed off, and that it's the integration of that process, the people, and the tools that they use to execute that. All right, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Tim. That was great. That's a good overview of the earned value process. And it's a good segue because, you know, the people, process, tools is critical. And, you know, we're a software company. Once again, we're going to talk about CloudEVM today. CloudEVM is actually in its fourth iteration. It started back in 1995. This source code actually was sold to Oracle Primavera back in 2007. And then we had a 5-year non-compete, and we're back in the market. So we actually took the product we sold them and upgraded it, and we're going to go through a live demonstration today. So my company is Integrated Management Concepts. My name is Mark Tillema. I've been doing this for over 20 years now in terms of software. And my company offers a number of things. We have traditional consulting services around the software. We partner with 10.6 for process work, so that's the people and process part of the equation. We have another product called Decision Edge Vector, which is a Microsoft project-based product, which we're not talking about today. And then we have our CloudEVM product, which we are talking about today, and we've got some detail. And then we have something called the Virtual EVM Experts. And the world literally has become much more virtual. So, using GoToMeeting, GoToWebinars, go to my training, you're able to actually work with your clients without having to be on site. That's a number of things. It actually reduces the cost for doing business, which in this day is very critical. It just makes for a much more effective approach for doing earned value. And since our product is in the cloud, you have the opportunity to work with anytime, anywhere access. So what does cloud really mean? People talk about the cloud. The cloud really is an infrastructure. So, we've evolved our technologies from the mainframes of a long time ago to what is now the cloud. And to us, it's a web interface. It's an intuitive user interface. It's a zero-footprint type interface. It's very fast to deploy, very cost-efficient because you can do it on a subscription basis. So you pay as you go kind of thing. If you want to alter the number of users, that's easily done. It's very scalable. So we have some clients that are very large. Pantex is a company that actually builds and dismantles nuclear weapons, the only one in the nation. They run our software, and they run 900 projects out to 20, whatever it is. And it's very fast, very scalable. But it's also very good for smaller contractors. We have contractors with Health and Human Services who have one earned value contract, the first one they ever had, and they're able to deploy in the cloud very quickly. We're an ED software, so there's other ED softwares out there. We essentially do the same thing. We just think we do it more efficiently and in more current technology. So how does CloudEVM work? So we live in the world of the accounting system and the project management system. So we're going to walk through actually some live demonstrations of integrating with Oracle Primavera P6 and then Microsoft Project and your accounting data. Accounting data is ubiquitous to us because there's so many accounting systems out there. So typically we'll bring a flat file or an Excel spreadsheet into our software. What I always say is our software, CloudEVM, bridges that gap and normalizes the data coming in from the project management system and the accounting system. We have our own fiscal calendars in our software that mirror the accounting system. And when we read the data from the planning system, resource loading schedules is becoming more and more critical with the change in the requirements, with the government wanting more schedule information. But when we read that information from the schedule, we literally take the curves the planner has put in P6 or project, or even the manual loads they've done, and bring that into our software and populate our fiscal period. That is very critical because it does not create false variances. If you attempt to use your earned value system and your own curves, you will get false variances from a resource loaded schedule. On the output side, we of course have all the latest view and CSAC. We'll talk about that today. We have the new IPMR, and I'm going to talk about that as well. And then we have some other ways of looking at the data that are really pretty nice in terms of analytics. And then we also integrate with other softwares externally, like there's a product called Empower, there's a product called Winsight, and I'll talk about that integration as well today. So technology truly does improve the whole earned value life cycle. Tim talks about the life cycle of earned value management, or in project management in general. The technology can make that much easier and much more cost effective. So, what we do is take a lot of disparate data points coming in from your project management software or your accounting software, and we create this integrated piece of information that you then report to your customer, you do your own internal analytics and so forth. So why are we unique? Because my company is focused on earned value management. That is what we do. We don't have any other products that aren't related to earned value management. We are a true cloud solution. So those that want to be in the cloud, this means there can be many companies operating within our cloud environment and be secure. Our people are earned value experts. So that's what we do. We have depth of knowledge in earned value management as it relates to our software. And once again, 10.6 are the type of people we rely on to do the process work in a much deeper fundamental earned value. We're a very comprehensive product offering. It's scalable from small to large, and it fits into your model. I'll talk about that today because our main goal is to make sure that when we bring our software into your environment, typically you're going to already have systems running. And so we have to be flexible to make sure that those systems can integrate into CloudEVM without having to re-engineer your data. Been around for a while. This hasn't actually been updated. We have more customers now. But, you know, we've been around since '95, and, you know, we know earned value software management. I'm going to kind of go through this quickly. This is a case study on Pantex. They were actually looking to upgrade. They were running the version of software we had sold, Oracle, and, you know, they came to us, and we upgraded them from the Oracle earned value management software into CloudEVM. They're very happy, and actually we have another release coming out that's going to make them much happier. But they saw tremendous performance improvements and just process flow, workflow kind of improvements on the software. This is a small company. This is Novavax. They are operating in the cloud. And I should mention, by the way, that you can operate on-premise. Obviously, it's a web-based solution. Pantex is operating in a highly secure environment, so they are an on-premise solution. Novavax operates in the cloud because they've got a health and human services customer. They never had done earned value management, and they came to us, and I offered them two approaches. One was that we would do it for them totally without even a software component cost to them, or they could do it themselves. And they chose to go with their virtual EVM experts, and we've been doing it for 4 years now, and they're very, very happy. They've been very responsive to their customer. Their customers have been very happy with the results in terms of, you know, their planning and so forth. And once again, this is a company that had never done earned value before, and they hired some earned value consultants, obviously. But this was a very great success story around a small company doing earned value for the first time. So, you know, what are the costs for EV? You know, it's really what Tim said. You know, there's people, process, and software. So you got people where you have the integration, change management, those kind of things, the process work. You have software, and you have hardware. So what we do in terms of making this more cost-effective is we remove the human factor in the case of Novavax. When they get more efficient, you'll see in what we're working with today in terms of dashboards and so forth, we're providing the users the analytics they need to answer the question. I'm going to talk about a customer we have that actually is rolling out CloudEVM with Encore Analytics and Power, and what they've been able to do with that. Amazon has GovCloud, so that if you're a DoD contractor up to secret, they will approve. You can go to GovCloud, and you have to sign up because but we can operate in the cloud environment up to secret. So we like to think we're the new normal because we're taking all this data, we're making it an enterprise tool. Of course, we're ANSI 748 compliant. We're very open on integration, and I'll go through that today. We're putting in a change management module, and we're actually working on some more detailed variance analysis. And so really it's the data to information transformation that we're doing with CloudEVM. So that, I'm going to jump off to a product demo, and I'm going to log into, I find this amazing, I'm actually logging into a server in Chicago. I'm actually in Idaho. And so when I log in here, I'm going to log into our enterprise dashboard. That'll be the first screen I see. And so once again, this product is on its 4th iteration. So our focus was underlying the engine and so forth. That's what people don't see. We've done a lot of work with that to make it much faster using current technology. But then the usability aspect of it was the primary thing because we knew we could change out the engine, but making the usability aspect of it for the users was really critical. So let me walk you through a dashboard. I'm going to go into this Bravo project. And this dashboard gives you, at a glance, how you're doing across the entire phase of the program. Gives you some metrics on your schedule performance indices and cost performance indices. If you had done any variance reporting, you could see it here with your control accounts. We have a control account plan that you can look at a glance so you can see how your control accounts are performing. All this is exportable to Excel, by the way. And then the control accounts themselves, I can drill down into and get the same type of information that I had with the overall project, but now at a control account level. So I can look at the status of this control account. If it has additional work packages, it has one work package under it. I can see the actual control account plan and then the work package itself, how it's doing. So that's one aspect of it, the dashboards. And we're actively working on this product, so we are looking at offering configurable dashboards. That's the next iteration of our software. And then we offer the Datacube. Our Datacube is a very powerful way to look at data ad hoc because, quite frankly, canned reporting is kind of going away. People want to see real-time data. They want to see it either in some kind of graphical format, whether it be a dashboard, or in this case, I'm going to go into this Datacube that gives me information that's time-phased. And so this is all of my information about the project. The beauty of the Datacube is I can actually go configure this. So I want to look at just my hours and my costs. So I'm going to take my indirects away and just put them up here. And then I'm going to filter on, let's get rid of this resource category as well. And let's just look at the top level of the project. So very quickly, an analyst could look at how they're doing time phase, and they can actually get rid of the periods and look at it by total program. They can go to the end and look at it by total project as well. They can save this away. So they can save away a view, either a shared view or a private view. So the next time the analyst comes into the software, they can go directly to that shared or private view and look at the refreshed data for that month. Of course, we are a ANSI reporting product, so we have the IPMR. And the IPMR, as Tim said, it's the CPR with some additional information. But the IPMR, the critical thing is that they're asking for a lot more scheduling information. So schedule integration is becoming much more important, and resource loading schedules is becoming much more important. Now, in the product, we have looked at making things easier. So we are a very strong rating engine. So in the past, we've actually had customers that used our software to rate their actual costs because their accounting system didn't get down to the details for applying indirects. So in here, I can actually put in my rates. I can put in my escalation factors. That's for my directs and for my indirects. I can then actually go put some rate formulas in, and this is how the rates are going to be applied. So I can actually, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, I can tell the software how that indirect is applied on the various levels. Another thing we added, which is really pretty nice, is this rate template. And the rate template is for customers that have a lot of information, a lot of different rate tables, different codes of money. So we literally can go in and at any WS level, across any period, with any rate table, we can configure how those rates will be applied. And when you go to our enterprise setup, you're going to go into a cost category, and you're going to tell it what template to use. So, the typical cost category is your baseline and actual forecast. In this case, we've got a prior baseline because we have not got our change control totally in place yet. I mentioned our calendar, so show you real quickly, this is just setting up a calendar that will mirror what's in your accounting system. And then we have, of course, the organization structure that will be used by assigning different overheads. So with our OBS, what typically happens is large companies have different divisions with different overheads. So they can actually assign a division, an organization, and that way those resources can be common across the enterprise but have different overheads applied. And it's just an easy way to make sure that you don't have to create many, many resource pools to do that. So our export capability. So we export to an XML. DOE has a certain XML that they want to see. Of course, there's a new UNCSAC XML export. We also, as I mentioned, export out to Empower, WinSight. Since we're working with Empower very closely on a few accounts, we've actually created this Empower optimized export what happens is it's almost seamless to the user. We're not using XML. XML is a great means of communication, but it can be fairly inefficient in terms of trying to write and read that type of data. So we've actually written with the Empower folks almost a direct communication to their product. Okay, so at this stage, I'm going to drop out of this project, and I want to show you a live demonstration of what we do. I'm going to show you both P6 and Microsoft Project. So let me go into my enterprise structure, and let me pick my P6. And with P6, we actually link directly to their database. So we don't have any integration with any APIs. There's no layers between us and the P6 data. Now that's critical because that makes things very, very fast when we read P6 data. Let's make sure that I don't have anything in here, which I do, so let's get rid of this. Now let's talk about our import. Our import is very open. We integrate, as I mentioned, with P6, Microsoft Project, and Excel 5 files. We export to a number of products. But our import is very flexible, and this is, an example. With P6, you have a lot of fields, and you don't want to see all those fields in your mapping process. So we actually let you go in and tell us what fields you want to put in for purposes of earned value management. For instance, we have some fields for doing, we have control account flags, work package flags, charge code flags, that kind of thing. And then in our import itself, the setup process, as I mentioned earlier, what we don't want to do when we come into an opportunity is make that company re-engineer the data that's coming into our software. So what we do is provide you with a mapping capability. And this is for a baseline import. So it says I'm going to bring my .ws in. Here are some fields that I'm going to bring in from P6 that have been set up by the planner. What schedule dates I'm going to use, my start and finish dates. But this is really critical. So I'm going to bring in a resource loaded schedule. Now, we let you pick what fields you're going to use. So in a number of companies, they've already established, for their resource planning, whatever it might be, they're using those fields. So we actually let you configure the other softwares like P6 and Microsoft Project with additional fields that we need to do a resource loaded schedule feed into CloudEVM. So when I read this data in, let me just make sure I've got the right connection here with P6. So I attached to a P6 baseline project. And then when I go into my import process, now I'll pick my link to P6. When I say import now, it's going out to the P6 database. It's reading anything that planners put in there, like I mentioned, resource curves. As it's bringing that data into our software, it's actually applying the rate metrics, all those indirects, directs, escalations. It's summarizing that up through the tree and creating that data set, and it does it very quickly. So the key is now I've got a data set that I ran in a matter of seconds that now I can go look at that information as an analyst and find out, in this case, I actually want to bring in my indirects so I can look at, what is in here in terms of cost of money, overhead, let's say, G&As. And now I can actually look at all of my costs, and I could take that out to Excel if I wanted to for additional information. So that's P6. So basically, P6 is a bit different. It's more of an enterprise software. There's a little more configuration, but that's done up front, like, the field selection and so forth. In the case of Microsoft Project now, I'm going to go to my Microsoft Project file. And in this case, okay, make sure there's no data in here as well. Okay, now this is different with Microsoft Project. It's the same mapping process, right? So when I do my import setup, I'm going to have the same, I've got a baseline cost mapping, for instance. So it's a bit different because there's different fields coming in from Microsoft Project and P6. And then I forgot to mention our actual cost import mapping. It's a bit different because actual costs, of course, have different fields. And so in this case, I'm going to bring in a charge code from my accounting system, and that's been established prior with either in Excel, or you can put it in the software directly, or typically our clients bring that in from the planning system, so they have a one single source of record. And then, of course, I'm bringing in my actual costs. They are going to be already rated. The case of Microsoft Project, though, is I have to upload those files. So I can actually, I've already uploaded some files here, but I could have gone out and uploaded additional files. Now, in this case, I'm literally going to create all the data I need for an IPMR. So when I go to my import process screen, I've broken these files up, by the way. I didn't have to, but I just wanted to show you the different types of data you can bring in. So I could have used actually a single Microsoft project, but I want to show you a structure import. I want to show you a baseline resource loaded schedule, performance coming in, my forecast, oops, or that, my forecast, and my actual cost. Now, when I click Import Now, it literally is bringing in everything I need for an IPMR. It's going to bring in my schedule information, my resources for both my baseline, my ETC. It'll bring in my performance numbers. It'll bring in my actual costs. It'll go through, and as it's bringing this data across, it's literally going to apply all the rates, do all the summarizations, do the variance metrics, my different techniques that I'm going to apply, my percent complete discretes. And when that's done, I can go look at what has been created within CloudEVM from those files. So now I have a WS that came in from Microsoft Project. There were flag fields set up in there that had my control accounts, my work package. There were charge codes that were in the Microsoft Project schedule. Their in-value techniques were configured within there as well. The resource assignment screen. So in this case, I've got resources that I brought in from a resource loaded schedule. So I've got my baseline, my hours, my dollars. I've got my forecast, and that has different data, of course, my actual cost, and there's that information. And then my performance. So basically, I've got now performance. There's my percent complete numbers that came in. And we do percent complete incrementally, so we have a history of all your performance. And then from there, I can go directly to my IPMR, and I can look at IPMR format 1. And here is all the data points you need for creating your UNC XML. And that literally is as easy as it is, because it's all about the data. I mean, the software is there to make it efficient, but the data is the key. We have a customer, Austell Shipbuilding. They are right now moving into CloudEVM, and they're very happy because, you know, they get different types of users, so they don't have users setting up mapping templates, but they're able to actually analyze their data. In the past, they literally would stay till 8 o'clock at night just getting the data ready for the next day's meeting. Now they're actually able to analyze the data prior to sending it off for the next day's meeting. And then my Datacube, of course, is already populated. So I've got, I created a view called My View, and it has my 4 types of costs: my baseline, my actual forecast, my earned. Now, as I said, we are continually working on the software. So the big thing we're putting in this year is change management. Change management is, I've been doing this a long time, and I have not seen a good change management module. And so we're actually working with a customer right now to create what we're calling a visual change management, so that users can actually have all the information go to the log files automatically. Everything is going to have electronic signatures. And so what it means is the users aren't going through laboriously each change, trying to figure out what they are. They're going to manage by exception in terms of the changes. So that's a big thing coming this year, and then configurable dashboards and more graphical reporting and that kind of thing. So at that, I'm going to actually go back to up there. Let's go back to mine. And at this point, I want to open up for questions. So let me see if we got any questions in here. Yes, there's a few. Okay, Tim, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind, okay? Somebody wants to
Sure.
know if the agency, well, all agencies require the new data metrics.
Yeah, that's a good question. As I mentioned earlier, they all tend to look to DCMA for guidance on what they should be requesting from the contractors. So they won't, I don't think that they'll all require all of the new metrics on day one, but as DCMA and DoD rolls it out, you can expect a lot of those metrics to be adopted by the other agencies. So I would expect that over time, more and more of those metrics will become standard across the government.
Okay. Next question is about the software, actually. Do I need to have an outside consultant manage the integration if we can do this in-house? You know, we've actually been doing this now with CloudEVM, and we find that people can go organic very quickly. You know, we have an online training, and so, yeah, basically, people that are mature in earned value management can definitely take this in-house very quickly. Does the software be in the cloud or can it be installed on site? As I mentioned, we do an on-premise installation. So the cloud is a great infrastructure if you're a mid to small-sized company, and the GovCloud now allows you to do it up to secret in those companies that, of course, they're larger, have classified contracts, will do it on-premise. Let's see here. Tim, for you, from the people, process, tools discussion you had, which one do you feel is the most important?
Yeah, that's a great question because people want to start out with one of them, but the truth is you really need to look at all of those together. So when you're putting in a tool, you want to make sure that the processes are there to support that and that the tools support the processes. And along those same lines, you're going to want to train the people not only on the concepts of earned value, but ultimately on those processes. So the truth is you really want to look at and implement all three of them at the same time. And the way that you can do that is do it in a level within all three, and then just do iterations from there. So you don't have to do everything at once in terms of all the capabilities in each of the areas, but you want to make sure that you're syncing up across people, process, and tools as you move forward.
Thanks. Next question, let's do a couple more here. Who can change data in CloudEVM? Well, that's a good question because we actually, being a web tool, it's so much easier to configure the usability, the user type interface, and who can access what. So we have three levels. We have an admin type user that can do everything, set up databases, set up mapping templates. We have a regular user that can do what you saw what I was doing with the import process. Then we have a report-only user that looks at variances, looks at the reports, looks at the cube, and that kind of thing. Let's see. Is there a special licensing required from Oracle to use your software P6? No, there's no licensing required. We talk directly to the Oracle database. Since we were an Oracle product at one time, we actually know how to generate the different time phasing and so forth. So we don't have to go once again through an 80 layers. Last question, Tim, for you is, we've never done earned value before, but just awarded a contract with earned value requirement. Where do we start?
Yeah, so keep in mind that even though you haven't done earned value before, likely you're doing some kind of project management. Even as from, most of the people I talk to, I always think that they do the most simplistic type of project management, but that's some process that you have within your organization. So the first place you want to start is understand what you're doing today and understand what those gaps are to doing project management with an earned value requirement. And once you've identified those gaps, then you can start to look at what is the plan to close those gaps to get to an earned value compliance.
Right. Okay, let's end it now. I want to say that we will have this webinar actually posted to the 10.6 website as this presentation as well. You can contact Tim or myself with any specific question. We're glad to reach out to you and talk to you. And thank you very much for attending our webinar today, and we appreciate your time. Thanks. Goodbye,
Thanks, everybody.